And you have to take your ideas and turn them into sustainable and profitable growth for whomever you work for. So that's kind of my number one, that's the first story. One of the other things that we have to do is market in a global world. And I want to first distinguish between marketing in a global world versus marketing internationally, because I also think there's a difference between the two of them. Marketing internationally is, kind of taking what you are and plopping it someplace else. And you might be in certain parts of the world, but you're not necessarily everywhere. So when you go to certain parts, you understand what you have to do there, but usually your culture prevails more than anything else. When you're marketing globally, it is very, very different. And before I go into that, a couple of things. People understand brand architecture? Yeah? Nods? Okay, well, I just want to briefly run through 4 quick brand architecture models, because it's good to understand where we believe we are and where we believe we're going. So the first one is mega brand. That would be someone like BMW or GE. BMW is still the name. There's the 700 series. The product is connected to the mega brand. Then there are things like holding equities, brand models. That's the classic P&G. Their brands, Ivory, Tide, or whatever, are completely distinct, completely independent from the parent brand. Then there's the power parent brand. That would be something like Marriott. There's Marriott Hotels. There's, Fairfield by Marriott, Courtyard by Marriott. The Marriott is still very much interdependent and intertwined. And then the 4th one would be something like the ingredient brand model, which would be Intel. So it's Intel inside, and then there's other brands like an HP or whatever the computer would be. Right now, we're somewhat in the holding equity model. We're trying to go to the power parent model. And we're also trying to transform a company that grew up with many independent multinational affiliates to being globally led and globally run. And so while you kind of hear about it, to actually have to live it and try to transform it is also very much a challenge. And so one of the things that we've done for the past year and a half, and I think I see Dana and Laura in the back, part of our Amway brand group, is we've had to create what will Amway stand for and what's our brand identity. And it has taken us 15 months to understand around the world what resonates to everybody around the world when they think about the Amway brand, but also what do we have to do that we can localize it and make it special there. We want people to start looking at us and saying wonderful things. Things beyond, oh, they have great products. Oh, yeah, I remember them. They were around. My mom used to, or whatever. We need to make ourselves very fresh and very modern, but still not walk away from the core values in which we stand and that our founders' fundamentals and what has built this company from the millions of people around the world who have built it to be the $8 billion company that it is. And so 15 months of work, we did qualitative work and quantitative work. We did research on ideas, and we did research on final concepts. And so what I'm actually going to share with you today is our new brand identity that we have a video for that will soon to be released over the next, it'll probably be about 60 days before it's released. Sneak preview, no film, no cameras, no nothing. But I do want to show you what it's like when you work very, very hard with a team to come up with a new Amway brand identity. I'd love to get your thoughts. Can you roll that, please, for a second? So that's the beginning. That's the beginning of what we will be doing to actually enhance the Amway image around the world. And you will see that manifest itself in many, many ways. But I wanted to share that with you because it literally is the result of the last 15 hard months, Dana? But the teams worked very, very well. We engaged an ad agency on a retained basis to work and become partners with us to get to this point. And what I'm hoping that it will do is leave an indelible impression about Amway when people look at it and start thinking about us in new and exciting ways. Do you think it'll work? All right. Okay. One of the other areas that they've asked me to speak about is spokespeople and how you pick spokespeople. Because now we have a new identity, and we're going to have to figure out how do we represent that, or who's going to represent that around the world. And I had the pleasure of selecting a spokesperson early in my career when I worked on Wheaties. Now understand, this was back in 1986. Okay, so you have to put your mind back in that time frame, 1986. And as you're looking for a spokesperson, the key things you want to remember is the relationship has to be a win-win. So both have to be getting something out of why you're connecting. You also have to have clearly defined brand values or corporate values so that you know what you stand for, because you want those values to align to whomever you're selecting. And you also have to be able to do very good background checks. And have a little bit of a crystal ball so you don't, so that they don't make mistakes in the future. So I was working on Wheaties, and I was trying to figure out who the next Wheaties, what we called Wheaties-worthy person would be. It's 1986. Anyone know who entered the NBA in 1986? Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan entered the NBA in 1986. And so here I was trying to convince everyone that we should go after Michael Jordan. Now, Michael Jordan was known from a college player, but he was nowhere near known to the extent that he is now. So the win-win proposition was we were going to give him exposure by putting his face on every Wheaties box. Imagine that, having to give Michael Jordan exposure. But again, this is 1986. And so did lots of research just to understand what his Q scores were so that everybody knew who he was and that he was very favored, checked his past to make sure there wasn't going to be kind of anything bad come up, and then went to sell Michael Jordan. Now, mind you, Wheaties people had been people like Pete Rose before, but the one prior to that was Walter Payton. So I go present to the head of the cereal division, and his response was, well, we don't want Wheaties to become the cereal for black athletes. And I was like, oh my gosh. Talk about challenges. Now you've got to figure out how to get through this. So you go back to your desk and you figure out, okay, how do you take this out of that and make him look at Michael Jordan as a human being? And so we spoke to some of his people, and we got an ad reel together that showed how the crowds reacted to him. And in the crowds, you saw everybody. It didn't matter just how crowds reacted to him. And we had this as a tape, because we didn't have DVDs at the time. It was a tape. And we asked him to go home and watch this tape and watch how the crowds reacted. And so he went home, he put it in, he was watching it, and his 10-year-old son walked through the room and said, oh, Dad, that's Michael Jordan. Is he going to be your next person on the Wheaties box? Sold. He came in the next day, and because of how his son reacted, realized that, oh, this is beyond how I'm looking at it. So sometimes you have to be a bit lucky, too, in what you do. But, it was very important that you understand who can be your influencers when you're trying to get something done and get something approved. Because you need those people. They may be someone, they may be your admin, and I'm telling you, Jane is definitely mine. You're not friends with Jane, you don't even get close to me. But you really do have to understand who else can help you influence.